Chapter 66. The outcome has already been decided. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. She has reached the completion of the Yellow Realm. So what? I have also made it. The corner of the ninth commandery princess's lips curved slightly. She started the dance scripture. The genuine chi in her body became white and even covered her skin with a layer of white brilliance. The blue water sword in her hand reacted and gave off a beam of light around 5 feet long. Boom! The ninth commandery princess waved her arms, drawing sword circles above her head. It emitted streaks of white light, and the sword breath wound round and round towards Lin Ningshan. How can this be, that the ninth commandery princess had broken through to the completion of the Yellow Realm? Also, the ninth commandery princess's genuine chi also seemed more powerful now. It was very thick and carried with it a light sense of coldness. Lin Ningshan felt her own genuine chi may be a little weaker than that of the ninth commandery princess. She has indeed successfully finished the practice of one part of the dance scripture. I had no idea that ninth sister's physique was so suitable for practicing the dance scripture, said Zhang Yuochen. Training exercises were not always the more powerful the better, and it is important that the training and the warrior's physique were compatible. Clearly, the ninth commandery princess's physique was very compatible with the dance scripture, and thus she was able to, in a very short amount of time, completed the training for one part of the dance scripture. If Lei were to train with the dance scripture, perhaps he would not improve as quickly as the ninth commandery princess. That was not to say he was not as talented as the ninth commandery princess, but because his physique was not as compatible with the dance scripture. As the ninth commandery princess had also reached the completion in the Yellow Realm, then the outcome of this match was once again suspenseful. Lin Ningshan was slightly more accomplished than the ninth commandery princess in sword techniques. However, the ninth commandery princess trained with a higher class of sword technique, and so her genuine chi was purer. Even when using a lower class sword technique, her attacks would still be very powerful. They were known as the two beauties of Yunwu City, possessing beauty beyond that of normal people. Each of the sword techniques is executed with grace and is elegant to behold. It seems as if the fairies were engaged in a dance of the sword. Their clashes were very dangerous, each stroke of the sword breath leaving deep gashes in the earth. So what if you have reached the completion of the Yellow Realm? You are still not able to challenge me. Sacred Guiding Sword. Lin Ningshan executed a low-class spiritual sword technique. With a wave of her arm, a sword breath of 8 meters in length flew out from the sword, dragging behind it a long sword path, straight towards the ninth commandery princess. The ninth commandery princess had not trained a low-class spiritual stage sword technique but had successfully practiced a superior class human stage sword technique, ethereal sword technique, etherealness and silence. The ninth commandery princess grasped her sword by the hilt with both hands and chopped down towards the ground, meeting Lin Ningshan's attack head-on. Boom! The ninth commandery princess's hand was scratched by the sword breath. Blood dripped from her wrists. The power of low-class spiritual sword techniques could not be compared to human stage sword techniques. In the end, the ninth commandery princess was still slightly weaker than Lin Ningshan. Lin Ningshan gave a cold laugh, and once again stepped up her pace, chasing after the ninth commandery princess, once again striking with Sacred Guiding Sword. Seeing that the ninth commandery princess was being pushed back with nowhere to go by Lin Ningshan, Zhang Yuochen immediately said, "Ninth sister, don't go head-to-head with her, utilize the strategy of movement, use up her genuine chi." Hearing Zhang Yuochen's words, the ninth commandery princess suddenly understood. Immediately she executed a mid-class human stage technique, becoming a shadow and flitting aside, dodging Lin Ningshan's attack. Although the spiritual stage sword techniques were very powerful, they also consumed huge amounts of genuine chi. Lin Ningshan had only just reached the completion of the Yellow Realm, and her genuine chi is still very lacking. After, at most, 10 strokes of spiritual stage sword techniques, her genuine chi would have been depleted. Lin Chenyu stood outside the martial arts field with his hands behind his back, smiled and said, "Since you can advise the ninth commandery princess, then may I advise Ningshan?" Zhang Yuochen gestured with both hands, smiled and said, "Please, go ahead." Lin Chenyu said, "Ningshan, since the ninth commander princess wants to escape, then you should follow and win the chase. Use the Lin family's killing sword technique and cut off her escape. Lin Ningshan took her brother's words to heart, and following Lin Chenyi's words, immediately executed the killing sword technique, chasing after the 9th Commandery Princess and forcing the 9th Commandery Princess into dangerous straits. On the 9th Commandery Princess's clothes, a few more cuts opened. Zhang Yuochen stood at the other end of the martial arts field and said, "Ninth sister, use the blue water sword technique, and attack her base." The 9th Commandery Princess immediately acted on Zhang Yuochen's words, executing a blue water reverse. The tip of her sword sliced past Lin Ningshan's abdomen. Hitting at Lin Ningshan's abdomen, her robe was slashed, showing a small section of pale white skin. The 9th Commandery Princess almost drew blood. Zhang Yuochen and Lin Chenyi were far more knowledgeable than the 9th Commandery Princess and Lin Ningshan about martial arts, and so with their advice, the fight became even more dangerous. It could no longer be considered a fight between the 9th Commandery Princess and Lin Ningshan, rather it was a duel between Zhang Yuochen and Lin Chenyi. Lin Ningshan, use sacred sword skill, straight towards her face. 9th sister, don't meet her head on. Immediately take 3 steps to the left, then turn back and strike. Zhang Yuochen and Lin Chenyi continued to advise the 9th Commandery Princess and Lin Ningshan. Half an hour passed and yet there was still no winner. Both women continued to take more and more damage. Zhang Yuochen saw that the 9th Commandery Princess already had 5 wounds. Each was dripping blood. He knew that if the fight were to go on, she and Lin Ningshan were sure to be heavily wounded. Were both of them to be defeated and wounded? Zhang Yuochen shook his head and took Le's sword from his hand, gripping it in his own and said, "Ninth sister, look how I execute this move, Sacred Breaking Plum Sword." Zhang Yuochen stood outside the martial arts field and began the move. Striking out with the sword, 7 streaks of sword breath flew out from the sword. The 9th Commandery Princess watched closely. She immediately followed Zhang Yuochen's instructions and struck out, executing the Sacred Breaking Plum Sword, straight toward Lin Ningshan's glabella. Sacred Breaking Plum Sword was one of the techniques of the Sacred Sword skill. Even Lin Ningshan had not yet managed to learn it. Seeing the 9th Commandery Princess executing the Sacred Breaking Plum Sword, Lin Ningshan panicked and immediately dodged to the right. Outside of the martial arts field, Zhang Yuochen seemed to have expected Lin Ningshan to dodge to the right, and so with a shake of his arm, the sword in his hand immediately dipped down and started swinging to the right. The 9th Commandery Princess saw Zhang Yuochen change his strike and followed to do the same, and the blue water sword in her hand turned to strike to the right. Swish. When her sword came to a stop, not an inch more or less, it landed exactly on Lin Ningshan's neck. Lin Ningshan's face changed and was about to strike back. "Don't move." The 9th Commandery Princess pushed a little harder on her sword. The edge of the sword slightly broke the skin at Lin Ningshan's neck. A drop of blood rolled along the edge of the blade and fell down. If Lin Ningshan dared to retaliate, the sword would only plunge deeper. At this moment, the 9th Commandery Princess was overjoyed. Using the sword at Lin Ningshan's neck, she used the point to raise Lin Ningshan's chin, smiled and said, "Sister Ningshan, you really shouldn't move. If by accident, I slice through your face of startling beauty, that would be a tragedy." Lin Ningshan was afraid to move. She was terrified that the 9th Commandery Princess would slice her face. Given the 9th Commandery Princess's identity, if she sliced her face during a duel, she would at most be scolded by the Yunwu Commandery Prince and the Queen. They wouldn't truly punish her. "If it weren't for Zhang Yuochen helping you, you would not be able to beat me." Lin Ningshan bore her pearly white teeth in anger, and said, "We shall fight again, fairly. I have already won. Why would I fight you again?" The 9th Commandery Princess and asked teasingly while innocently blinking. Her sword continued to remain around Lin Ningshan's neck and face as if at any moment she could strike and ruin Lin Ningshan's face. Before the fight, Lin Ningshan had never thought she would lose to the 9th Commandery Princess. Even now, she would not admit that she was not as good as the 9th Commandery Princess. Lin Ningshan was not satisfied and said, "If you are willing to fight again, we can raise the stakes. If I lose again to you, I am willing to become your serving girl." and serve you for 10 years. Not interested. The ninth commandery princess shook her head and said, I do not have the time to fight you again. You have lost this fight. Kneel instantly and apologize to me, or I will slice apart your face and make you ugly. Zhang Yuochen gently shook his head and sighed quietly. Battle between women was a terrifying thing. However, he did not feel sympathy for Lin Ningshan. If the ninth commandery princess had lost this fight, Lin Ningshan would use even more extreme methods to humiliate Zhang Yuochen. Lin Ningshan's eyes carried a dark anger and she said, I agreed to apologize, but did not agree to kneel and apologize. I have won, and I want you to kneel. You can decide. If you don't kneel, then I will really slice open your face. The ninth commandery princess said. Lin Ningshan's eyes flashed to Lin Chenyu, imploring him to help. Lin Chenyu said, Your Majesty, one should forgive. Shut up. Who are you? You are nothing more than 7 brothers' servant. Do you have the right to stand and talk to me? The ninth commandery princess said. Lin Chenyu's face darkened, a sense of death flashed through his eyes, but he quickly suppressed it. Politely he bowed to the ninth commandery princess and said, This servant dares not. Ningshan, kneel immediately and apologize to the ninth commandery princess. Lin Ningshan's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Her whole body was shaking. For her to kneel to the ninth commandery princess, it was the greatest humiliation. The ninth commandery princess blinked, smiled and said, I am not an unreasonable person. If you are willing to pay out 1 million silver coins, then I can let you go at once, and you won't need to kneel. 1 million silver coins, where would I find that? Lin Ningshan said. The ninth commandery princess's eyes flashed to Zhang Yuochen standing outside the martial arts field. Her meaning was clear. Ninth brother owes you 1 million silver coins. If you will not ask for the 1 million silver coins, then I will let you go. Lin Ningshan, of course, understood the ninth commandery princess's meaning, and also looked towards Zhang Yuochen. If she could bring out 1 million silver coins, she could choose to not kneel. But the 1 million silver coins, for the whole family, it was a huge amount. Lin Ningshan could not hand it back. Fine, I'll kneel. Lin Ningshan looked like she had made an important decision. Unbelievably she kneeled in front of the ninth commandery princess and said, Your Majesty, the ninth commandery princess, I apologize humbly. Everything was my fault previously. Please forgive me. The ninth commandery princess was shocked. The ninth commandery princess had not meant to really humiliate Lin Ningshan. She only wanted to force Lin Ningshan to return the 1 million silver coins. She did not expect for Lin Ningshan to kneel for the 1 million silver coins, to take such humiliation as kneeling and apologizing. If they had swapped places, the ninth commandery princess would definitely not have been able to do that.